Hello, I'm Sarah from Truth, Lies, Betrayal. Welcome to Horror After Dark. Turn down the lights, keep an open mind, and prepare for tonight's nightmare. Let's begin.
I still don't fully understand why I agreed to go back there. It was supposed to be a simple reunion, me and 3 old friends from high school, meeting up at the edge of our hometown after almost 10 years. Nothing special, just drinks, old memories, maybe a few laughs about how stupid we used to be. But the moment I saw the town again, something felt wrong. It hadn't changed much. Same faded road signs, same quiet streets, but the road leading out toward the old ridge felt heavier somehow, like the air itself had thickened the closer we got. That was the place we never talked about. We stopped at the old overlook, the spot we used to hang out at night when we were teenagers. You could see the entire valley from there. Back then, it felt peaceful. Now it just felt empty in a way that didn't make sense, like the landscape was holding its breath. My friend Jake was the first to speak. He was always the one who said what everyone else avoided. "Do you guys ever think about her?" he asked, trying to sound casual. Nobody answered right away. The wind brushed through the dry grass behind us, slow and uneasy. We all knew who he meant. We weren't supposed to say her name anymore, not officially. It wasn't a rule we made, it just happened. After a while, saying it felt wrong, like it pulled something closer. Because every time someone brought her up, strange things followed. At first, we thought it was grief messing with us. We were 17 when she disappeared reckless, always sneaking out. Always pushing us into doing things we shouldn't. She was the loudest in our group, the one who never backed down from a dare. Then one night, she didn't come back. No body, no explanation, just gone. After that, things started happening. Knocks at 3 a.m., footsteps outside windows, her voice on old recordings when no one else was near the mic. Small things at first, easy to dismiss individually. Standing at the overlook years later, Jake ruined that silence in one sentence, and the moment he did, the air changed. It wasn't dramatic, no lightning, no sudden storm, just a stillness that dropped over everything. The wind stopped first, then the insects. Even distant traffic from the town below seemed to disappear. It felt like the world had turned its attention toward us. A sharp crack cut him off. Not thunder, not wood snapping, something closer, behind us. We turned together. There was nothing there, at least nothing obvious. But then I noticed it down the slope beyond the overlook, between the dry grass and scattered rocks. A pale shape, too still to be natural. It blended into the ground in a way that made my eyes slip off it the longer I stared. And then it moved. Not like walking, not like crawling, just closer. Like distance didn't matter anymore. Laura grabbed my arm. "Hard, we need to go," she whispered. Jake tried to laugh again, but it came out broken. It's probably just another sound interrupted him. A voice, soft, familiar, saying her name. Not from one direction, from everywhere at once. My stomach dropped. None of us had said it this time. Jake was the first to run. That's when everything broke at once. We followed him toward the car, pushing through the grass, branches scratching at our arms. Behind us, the silence changed into movement, footsteps, uneven and wrong, like something trying to remember how to walk by, copying memory instead of muscle. We didn't look back until we reached the car. Doors slammed, engine started, tires tore into gravel. Jake didn't slow down until we were far from the ridge. For a while, nobody spoke. The only sound was the road rushing under us. Then Laura started shaking in the back seat. "I heard her," she said. "Right behind me. I heard her breathing." Nobody argued. Because I had heard it too. Not words this time, just presence. Close enough that my body reacted before my mind did. When we finally reached town, we pulled over without discussion. All of us needed air that didn't feel wrong. That's when I checked the back window. Just a habit, just to be sure. At first, there was nothing but the empty road behind us. Then, in the fading light, I saw her, standing at the edge of the ridge road. Not fully formed, not solid like a person, more like something trying to remember what being human looked like, and getting most of it right. But I recognized her immediately, and she was looking directly at us. Behind her stood something else tall, wrong, hard to focus on, like my mind refused to hold its shape. It moved slightly, not toward us, just learning, like it was figuring out how people are supposed to exist. Laura saw my face, turned around, and whispered, "No." Jake slammed the gas. We never went back to the ridge. But sometimes, in the quiet, I still hear it trying to say her name. And every time, it sounds a little more human. I don't tell people where I grew up anymore. If they push, I just say a small town up north. That's easier than explaining Winter Creek. Easier than explaining why, every winter since I left, I still wake up at 3:07 a.m. without fail. It started when I was 16. Winter Creek was the kind of place that looked harmless in the daytime: snow-covered roofs, empty roads, frozen river cutting through the town like a scar. But at night, especially in deep winter, it felt like something else lived there too. Something we were all taught not to talk about. We called it the ritual, though nobody ever admitted believing in it. Every year, on the coldest night, the town would go silent at exactly 3:07 a.m. Lights off, no movement, no sound, not even cars. If you were outside during it, you didn't come back the same, if you came back at all. Adults said it was superstition, kids said it was a dare, but everyone still stayed inside, except the year my friends decided to test it. It was 4 of us: me, Nolan, Tara, and Ben. We were stupid in the way teenagers always are when fear feels like a joke. Nolan was the one who pushed it. If nothing happens, he said, then it's all made up. If something does happen, then we finally know. We waited until winter hit its worst. Snow piled so high the streetlights barely reached the ground. The river had frozen solid days earlier. That meant it was close. The night came quietly, too quietly. My parents locked up early without even being reminded. Everyone in town did the same. It was like a synchronized habit built over generations. We met in my basement at midnight. At 2:50 a.m. we went outside. The cold hit like a physical force. It burned my lungs. The entire town looked dead, not asleep dead. We stood in the middle of Winter Creek's main road, watching every house go dark one by one. Then we waited. Nothing happened. Nolan laughed nervously. "See? It's just 3:06 a.m. The sound of wind stopped." The sound of wind stopped. Completely, no breath of air, no creaking trees, no distant hum of the power lines, just absolute silence. And then 3:07 hit. It felt like the world blinked. The streetlights flickered once, then went out. Every single one. Even the ones that had never failed before. Tara whispered, "We should go back inside." But it was too late. Because the road wasn't empty anymore. At first I thought it was just shadows stretching weirdly across the snow. But then I realized the shadows were moving against the light that wasn't there. Something was walking between the houses. Slow, deliberate, not footsteps, more like dragging. Ben backed away first. Nope, I'm done," he said, turning toward his house. But his front door was already open. We all saw it at the same time. That wasn't normal. None of us remembered it being open. Then we heard the knocking. From inside his house. Not at the door, from the walls. 3 knocks. Paused, 3 more. Like something inside was learning rhythm. Ben ran. He made it halfway up his driveway before the screaming started. It didn't sound like pain. It sounded like confusion. Like something trying to imitate a human voice and getting it wrong. We didn't wait. We ran in the opposite direction, toward the frozen river. It was the only place open enough to see whatever was coming. But the river wasn't frozen anymore. It was moving. Not water, something thicker. Black beneath the ice, pressing upward like it was trying to remember how to breathe. And in the center of it, something was standing. Tall, still, facing us. No face, just a shape that didn't belong in the way anything alive should look. Tara started crying. Nolan was shaking so hard he could barely stand. Then the thing on the river raised its head slightly, and all at once, every house in Winter Creek lit up again. But not with normal light. It was dim. Wrong. Like candlelight behind frosted glass, and inside every window there were silhouettes, standing perfectly still. Watching us. Tara whispered, "They're all awake." Then I heard it. My name, said from behind me. I turned. There was nothing there. But Nolan was staring at something over my shoulder, his face completely drained of color. "They learned you," he said quietly. That's when I understood what the ritual really was. It wasn't to protect us from something outside. It was to keep something inside Winter Creek from realizing we were still here. And we had just broken the rule that kept it from noticing. The last thing I remember is running. The last thing I saw was the town lights going out again one by one like someone counting down. And now, every winter, at 3:07 a.m., I wake up and hear knocking in the walls. Not outside. Inside. I used to think my grandfather's stories were just rural superstition warnings meant to keep a kid from wandering too far into the fields at night. He called it the Harvest of Black Thorns. According to him, once in a while the soil would turn, and anything that grew from it after that point wasn't normal crop or weed. It was something contaminated, something that drained the land and spread slowly if ignored. He always ended the story the same way: if you ever see black thorns, don't touch them, pull them out early or burn them, wait too long, and the field takes more than the harvest. I stopped believing my grandfather years ago, so when I returned to his abandoned farm, I ignored the strange dark patches in the far field. At first they looked like dead crops. Then they started growing. Thin black stems, sharp thorns, spreading slowly across the soil. I remembered his warning and called a nearby farmer named Harris. He took one look at the field and went pale. "That's blackthorn growth," he said quietly. "So my grandfather wasn't lying?" I asked. He shook his head. "No, but it's not what people think." He explained that it wasn't supernatural or cursed, at least not in the way stories made it sound. It was a rare invasive plant mutation tied to contaminated soil and underground fungal networks that could survive for decades. Once it appeared, it spread through root systems aggressively, stealing nutrients from surrounding land and choking everything else out. "Left alone, it will ruin the entire field in a season," he said. "And if it reaches irrigation channels, it spreads to neighboring farms." I asked him why people made it sound like a myth. "Because the first time it showed up here," he said, "people didn't understand what it was. They let it spread. By the time they tried to fix it, they'd lost most of the valley." That was enough to convince me to act. We agreed I'd help him burn the infected patches the next morning. He said fire was the only reliable way to stop it before the roots went too deep. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept imagining the roots spreading underground where nobody could see them. Around 2 a.m. I heard scratching outside. The plants weren't moving unnaturally. They were reacting to wind patterns I couldn't feel from inside the house. Still, I stayed awake until sunrise. The next morning, Harris arrived with fuel and equipment. But when we stepped outside, we stopped. The patches had grown overnight. The black thorns had spread closer to the house and reached the irrigation ditch. Harris stared for a moment and said, "We burn it now." We spent hours cutting and burning infected areas until the thorns curled into ash. After checking the ground, he nodded. "It might hold," he said. "But if it comes back, burn it immediately." That night I slept better than I had in days. 2 weeks passed. The soil looked normal again. The farm slowly started to feel like neglected property instead of something dangerous. I even considered staying longer than planned. Then one morning, while walking the irrigation line, I noticed something small near the ditch. A single black sprout had returned. Small, easy to miss. But I knew what it was. I grabbed fuel and burned it immediately. It died without spreading. That's when I understood. The harvest was never a curse. Just something dangerous people ignored, until it became impossible to control. I stayed another week, clearing soil in sections and treating the land the way Harris recommended. By the end, there were no signs left, only scorched earth and safe ground ready to recover. When I finally left the farm, I sold it to a local cooperative that planned to replant it correctly. Before driving away, I looked back at the fields one last time. They didn't look haunted. They looked empty again. And for the first time, I realized my grandfather wasn't warning me about monsters. He was warning me about neglect.
Hi, it's me, Sarah. The story may be over, but some nightmares never truly end. If you enjoyed tonight's episode, please like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to join us for more terrifying stories here on Horror After Dark. And remember, sometimes the things that scare us most aren't hiding in the dark. They're already inside the house. Good night, and sleep carefully.